Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome everyone. I think the seats have filled up, but I'll just start anyway. It's about 7:35 now. Welcome guys. Happy New Year to everyone. Happy start of Sem 2. I hope Sem 2 has been good to you. Quietly. Welcome. Please have a seat. I understand. I hope Sem 2 has been great for everyone. It's only been 2 days, but just a show of hands. Who missed tutorial registration just now? No one? Okay, good. You're all a lot more responsible than I am. So good job for that. I hope Sem 2 has been great for you. But if it hasn't, good news. It's about to get a lot better because fun workshop, right? Okay. Today we have about I believe we have 200 signups, over 200 signups, which I have to say is a lot more than I expected. But thank you very much for that. Thank you for your enthusiasm in learning whatever this is. But unfortunately, that also means that since this capacity only holds 40 people, it can only accommodate 40 of you. So a lot of you are actually online through the Zoom. And we apologize for that. I know it's a kind of a late notice as well, but we'll do our best to make sure that if you're watching online, it doesn't take away any part of the experience. Right? So welcome to everybody to our workshop. And I hope that everyone is okay. This workshop will be about 2 hours long. I hope. I hope. So it will end at about 9:30. But if at any point, I don't know, if you have any other commitments, need to go home and feed your cat, whatever, please just go ahead, right? I'll be kind of sad, but it's okay, go ahead. At any time, if you have any questions, don't ask. Okay, that was also a joke. If you have any questions, there'll be a few breaks in between the segments where we'll be answering questions, right? If you're online, if you're watching online, I'm sure there's some method. I think there's a Pigeonhole link that you can go and submit questions. And during the breaks, we'll go and answer them, right? And if you find that your question is not answered by us, it means that we are trying to avoid it. So don't ask again. Okay. That was also a joke. They said to not make that joke because it doesn't sound like a joke, but that was a joke, right? Okay, welcome everybody to the workshop. I hope that you're as excited as we are to learn about React and building a portfolio website. Right. This is my clicker, it's a mouse. All right, so first let's start with an introduction to the club, to who we are as a club. So we at Developer Student Clubs at NUS, we at Developer Student Clubs, we are a club at NUS and we are passionate about spreading and teaching and using technology for social good. So that comes in various ways. That comes in hosting workshops like this, and we have various projects with stakeholders. And also, we are organizing a hackathon sometime in February. The signups are not out yet, but once they're out, I encourage all of you to go and sign up for that.
Do it after the midterms.
Do it after midterms.
Yeah.
The hackathon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when are midterms?
Around probably for 2030, 2040, it's like an end Feb.
End Feb.
Yeah.
This is also end Feb. So I guess you can prioritize which one. I encourage you to prioritize the hackathon. Okay, so once the sign up is out, I encourage everyone to go and sign up for that. I think it will be a very fun experience. I think it will be very rewarding as well. So look out for that. All right. A little about the three of us. This is some nice photos of us. That is Jenna. Right. That is Jenna. This is me, Rehan, and this is Jeho. And the three of us will be your React buddies or portfolio buddies for tonight. Okay, let's talk about what we'll be doing this workshop. This workshop is supposed to be a personal portfolio website workshop, but that's not really exactly the main focus of today. The focus is also on React which is a JavaScript library. Right. So while we do want to come away with a nice portfolio website at the end of it, more importantly, I think we should come away with this skill, this ability, and this, I guess, motivation to learn more about React. And I hope that will come true, right? Today will be friendly for those with absolutely no knowledge of React. With absolutely no knowledge of React, and we'll be going through the fundamentals step by step for that. But it does say that we do recommend having minimal JS or HTML or CSS. And what that means is, it will be helpful to know a little bit of JS, JavaScript, or HTML or CSS, but it's fine if you don't, right? Why I say it would be helpful is because there will be parts of the code or parts of the explanation that will be kind of skipped over or kind of not emphasized because they're not really central to the concept of React. And it might be a little confusing if you don't know what's going on, but it should be fine, right? That's not the focus. So it's fine either way. Okay, we'll be exploring useful concepts that are central to React, obviously. And we'll also be providing some tools that are commonly used in conjunction with React, dependencies, some packages, and that will really help you with your development experience. I think that, I think React is a very good library to learn, and it's a great time to be part of this community. And one of the main reasons is actually the tools, right? There are so many dependencies available, and there's always very frequent updates and bug patches and all these new features that are very exciting to explore. Okay, so let's start with an introduction to React. So what is React? React is a JavaScript library to help us build user interfaces. Okay, that's not very interesting though. More importantly, go back. Click twice. Okay. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Wait, that's a bit. This is a prank. Did you prank with me? Celsius. Let's do it. What's can you put this? Just stop this. Okay. Sure. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. This is supposed to be the next slide. Let's talk about what will happen in this workshop. Right. In this workshop, first I will be talking about React. I'll be introducing you guys to the concept of React and why we should be using React. Its many benefits, and also I'll be going through the core mechanism that happens behind the scenes that allows React to be so powerful, that allows React to be so useful. Right. And then in segment 1, Jeho will be talking about React components, and he'll be going over the very fundamentals of using React. And he'll be covering things such as state and hooks, and to build a solid foundation about React. In segment 2, Jenna will be talking about reusing these components for our convenience and all of the benefits that brings. And in segment 3, Jenna will also be talking about how to connect these components together, how to connect pages together, and she'll be using some router for that. So that's a dependency. So that'll be we'll be witnessing how a dependency or a tool will help us, will assist us in our development experience. Finally, in segment 4, I will come back to talk about passing around state, which sounds kind of weird, but basically what it means is, it gives a little more power to the programmer. It allows you more flexibility to do more things between the components. So it allows you more interaction between components on the website. Okay, let's talk about what is React. Okay, this is the real one now. Okay, what is React? React is a JavaScript library that helps us build user interfaces. But more importantly, why should we use React? Okay, Well, I can think of two reasons, as in we can think of many reasons, but we have singled out two main reasons for using React. The first reason is that it makes things easy. Right? It makes things easy because of the way that it works. Right, okay, so React is components-based. What that means is a React website is made up of many components, right? And these components are just parts. They're parts of the overall website. And when all of these parts come together in a correct way, you get a nice front-end UI. Right? And what's components is that they are reusable. They're reusable, which brings about many benefits, right? I'm sure if you, okay, they're reusable, so you can build like a blueprint for one component and then make many different components and save time. So that's, I guess, a benefit. It saves time, it saves effort. You don't have to rewrite all the code, right? But also it brings a form of consistency to the website, right? Your UI will look very consistent if each one is basically the same shape but has a bit different text inside. That makes the UI very clean. So if you see a React website, many times, more often than not, it's going to look very sleek, right? And finally, I think one benefit, one way that the components-based development assists in development that maybe is talked about less is that it simulates how we as people, we as human beings, would view a website, right? If you go to a website, you will kind of subconsciously, intuitively break it down into different components. If you go to a website, you will see a navigation bar, and that's one component. And then you will see a little text or chat box, and I don't know, different news articles. And these are all separate components. And I think, and when that happens, you as a human programmer, you are viewing the website that way. And when you use React to program, and the entire programming philosophy or programming paradigm is based that way, is split into different components. And then you can program in rules about how to interact in between components. That kind of mirrors how we as humans see a website, how we as humans would see the code. And when that happens, I think the programming experience becomes a lot more natural. It becomes easier in that sense. So I think that's kind of that's quite insightful, right? Okay, the second reason is efficiency and functionality. What I mean by that is, well, this goes more into how React works in the background. And that's using a virtual DOM. So first, what is a DOM? DOM, the DOM stands for Document Object Model. It's basically just a representation of the HTML of a website. Okay, and it's basically just a website, right? It's the HTML tree of a website. And the virtual DOM means that it's virtual, it's not real, right? And the virtual DOM, what's special about it is that it's lightweight. And because it's lightweight, it's easy to build. It's fast and it doesn't consume a lot of resources to render, to rebuild every time. Okay. And the way it works is when something on a React website changes, only the part that changes will be affected. Everything else remains the same. Everything else goes on as normal. And how that works is using this virtual DOM, right? So let's look at this kind of flow chart. Okay, right. Let's say something is triggered. Something happens on the website. So okay. Okay, let's say something happens to the website. Okay, some event is triggered. And the DOM will realize the event is triggered and realize that something has changed. Something has changed on the website, and the website needs to be updated. But how you update the website is based on this flowchart. Okay. So the app, once it realizes that some state has changed on the website, it will rebuild the virtual DOM. It will not rebuild the real DOM, right? And what's special about this process is, since the virtual DOM is lightweight, it is fast to rebuild, right? It's very fast to rebuild, and the real DOM has not been affected yet. But the problem is the virtual DOM is not the real DOM, right? So nothing happens to the user. You don't see any changes on the website. So there's still this last step called reconciliation, where React will compare the virtual DOM to the real DOM, and then identify the parts that have changed in the real DOM, and then only update the parts that have changed in the real DOM according to the new virtual DOM. And that is fast, right? And that doesn't change anything else in the real DOM. That doesn't affect any other parts of the website. So that allows, firstly, that allows speed, right? You don't need to waste resources updating everything. And also that allows a very clean look on the website, right? You can interact with one component and other parts aren't affected, right? So that's kind of by default. But further than that, you can also use this kind of concept to determine which other components you want to update according to your own preferences, right? You as a programmer, you can say that if something happens to this component, whenever this component is re-rendered, I want to re-render this particular other components as well, right? So all of these rules can be programmed into your liking because of the components-based paradigm, because of this kind of flowchart. So I think that's quite convincing to as to why this gives the programmer a lot of power in determining what happens on the website. Okay, I hope I've convinced you why React is so powerful. So let's actually get to doing stuff. Okay, this slide says installing React. Actually, we lied. We kind of don't want you to install React right now. All of these links are tutorials or guides on how to install React. But just for today, for simplicity's sake, to save time, I encourage everyone to just use this browser-based code sandbox, codesandbox.com. Just go online, type it in, and then it should automatically be able to create a new React project. So just take a bit of time to do that. And actually, if you're lazy, you can just not do that. You can just listen if you want. But I encourage you to do it if you want. So just create a new React app, and it should automatically be compatible to
anyone needs any help, if you just ask anyways.
Geo is a bit lonely. I think you can give him a task.
Using the command line.
Is everyone good?
Yeah, that's all. It's just this other one.
Everyone good?
Did you not install? It's not yet.
Is everyone okay? No. Yeah.
Let's create React. React app.
So I feel like everyone's good.
Yeah,
If you're not good, ask Jenna to help. Once you have a new React project, please
Create React app.
okay. On the bottom left of the screen, you should see this tab called dependencies. And I would like you to install just this one dependency. Okay. It's called React Router DOM with hyphens in between. This dependency will be helpful in a later segment. It'll help us link pages together in an efficient way. Sorry, in an efficient way.
Okay. So how was I? First we gotta found
Really? To install dependency. Oh, really? We have decided to install that.
I didn't decide.
If you do have to, then I guess just do it. This is free.
Yeah, I think it'll take like 1 minute to sign in.
Okay, sure.
On the sandbox, yes, but I haven't figured out this is called. You know what? I'm just gonna use this file.
You don't have work. Web structure basically. Guys, if you're having trouble installing the dependency, we can help you out during the break because it's not needed right now. So for now, it's not necessary. Yeah.
This one.
Shall we continue?
It's created with my head.
All right, let's carry on. Okay, guys. We have a GitHub repository of all of the code that we'll be writing today. And the purpose of this is for you to go and copy and paste code because it's going to be a lot of code and it's kind of crazy if we expect you to type out everything. So this is the link. I believe it should be also in the sign up form or the notice email thing. But either way, that's the link. And note that that is a finalized code, right? Which means that there might be things inside there that we haven't covered yet. So be selective when you copy and paste. Right, so that's just to help you out to save time. So we recommend that you have that tab open for copy and pasting. Okay, let's continue.
Whatever changes you make,
Right,
you were sure.
Yeah. Wow, shall I
I'm gonna carry on.
manually
Uh,
open logo for 2000?
Okay, fine. I'm almost done with my introduction. Finally, just before we actually begin with each part properly, I think it's good if I give a quick overview of what we'll be building today, the portfolio thing that we'll be building today. Okay. In a React app, the main component, the core component, is called app. That's the default, right? That's the standard. So we have the app is just your whole website. Okay. And then the app will have three child components. And the first one is called home. It's the home page of the portfolio, right? It has some funny stuff going on inside, but basically it's just a page, right? It's not that interesting. It doesn't have further child components. And then the second page is called projects, and projects is where it's kind of the point of the portfolio, right? It's to show off what you've done before. You can put in all of your past projects as different entries, and the different entries will actually be further components, right? So here you can see that projects also has further child components, and that's when the hierarchy of components becomes a little more visible and more interesting. So that's kind of okay. Doesn't really matter what's going on right now. Finally, contact info is the last page that we'll be building. So after someone sees your beautiful website, they want to find a way to get in contact with you, right? So this is where you want to put your LinkedIn, your mobile number, your home address, your social security number, all your passwords, everything you want to put in the contact info, right? And similarly, it also has for the children. Okay, so that's also quite a complicated component. These three main pages will be linked together using router, and that's when the React router DOM comes in. So this is a kind of an efficient way to link pages together, and this will also be explored in detail. Okay, I guess if you look at this, and you look at a few slides ago where I introduced like the workshop outline, it might seem kind of weird because they're both outlines of what we'll be doing today, right? But that's kind of the point, right? We're trying to structure the building of a portfolio step by step to assist us in the process of introducing new React concepts. So each new page is actually a new concept in React. And so those two things are actually happening in parallel. While you're building a portfolio, you're also learning React. And we hope that we've structured this in an understandable way, in a logical way. And yeah, should be quite fun. Okay, Jill. Okay, I will pass the time over to Jill right now, and he'll be talking about React components. Yeah.
Okay, so before I go into the second one, you actually said the pigeonhole link. That's the place that you can post your questions. So click on the link. For those of you in Zoom, just put whatever questions you have and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So starting with the second one, React performance. So now that we know how to set up React, we'll actually jump into building our custom website. But before we do that, let's have a general understanding of syntax and structure of code. So this is the pseudocode for functional components. And we use JavaScript file to build up these components. So within our pseudocode, we have the import statement at the top. So whatever follows after this keyword imports, it's going to be a series of codes you want to import into this functional components. So it could be certain React features, or it could be possibly a CSS file for you to import and use within your functional components. And then we have this function over here. And within the return statements of the functional components, we're going to have the parentheses and then the JSX element inside the parentheses. And what this JSX element is it's a chunk or a group of children elements. They're usually the HTML tags inside this JSX element. And whatever is inside the JSX element is going to be displayed on the page when this function gets rendered. So let me show you a simple example of how we can create text and display on the page. So as discussed before, we have the import statements at the top. So we are importing the styles.css file. And then we have this function called, and within the function, we have return statements. And we have the set of parentheses surrounding this JSX elements created by this overarching div tag. And inside this JSX elements, we have the H1 tags, the H2 tag, and whatever's in between these H1 and H2 tags are the strings or the texts we display on the page. Now, before I show you the rendered results of this function, there's a very important thing to note over here, which is inside the return statements of the functional components, it is important to have the parentheses and then a single JSX element represented by a single container or children elements. So for example, if we didn't have the div tag enclosing all the other children elements of here, and instead have only the H1 and H2 tags, then essentially you're creating two JSX elements. So this goes against the syntactic rule of React, and React is going to have errors when you try to render this function. So if you try to render this function app, this is the page that we're going to see. So whatever was in between the H1 and H2 tags are the texts we see on the page. Now, our first aim is to create a home page like this, but we're going to have some interactive components. So in our home page, ideally, we're going to have this navigation bar, and then at the bottom, we're going to have a page with the captions or the descriptions, and then the photo or chat. So our default page is going to look something like this, but we're going to start with a simple default page without the navigation bar. The navigation bar part is going to be established during Jana's parts or Rayhan's parts later on. So for now, we just want this simple default page with Jana's captions and image. Now, the interactive component that I just mentioned is taking place when you click the image. So let's say we click the image of Jana. Then it's going to switch to a new page with the captions and image for myself. And now you click on the image again for the second time. Then it's going to flip to a new page with the captions and image for Rayhan. And if you click the image again, it's going to bring you back to the default page. So we're going to have the captions and the image for Jana. And this is possible because of something called state. So what is state? State is an application property or something that you can keep track of within your functional components. And in order to use this hook, because a hook is a tool that you can import into your functional components to make use of this state. So in order to do this, we need to import something called hook into our functional components. And a very commonly used type of hook in React is something called useState. So if you look into this pseudocode for a functional component that makes use of this useState hook, at the very top, we are having the import statements. So we're importing the CSS classes from the CSS file. Then we are importing React, and specifically the useState hook, this tool from the X. And within our function, we're gonna have a constant declaration for an array of two variables, which are state and updater. And if you see the right-hand side, it's calling the useState hook that we import it with an initial state. And this initial state is just a placeholder. It can be whatever value you put into this useState hook. So what this is it's going to return an array of two elements. So the first element is going to be whatever you put in the place of this initial state. And it's going to be assigned to the first variable we have, which is the state. And then the second element of this newly created array is going to be the state updater function. And this second element gets assigned to the variable updater or u. And you see the arrows over here and the annotations. So basically, the state is the variable name for this state you're keeping track of. And then the updater is the variable name for the state updater function. And what this state updater function is it can be called later in our code to update the value of the state variable. So whatever value we put into this updater function, you're going to be updating the value of the state variable to whatever arguments you put into this updater function. And just keep in mind that this state and updater, these are just placeholding names. You can change the names to whatever names you want them to be. And within the return statements of the function, you're going to have the parentheses, then the JSX elements, and then within it, you can call the updater function to update the value of the state. So I'm going to show you the actual implementation of the code in our home.js file, so the JavaScript file. And this is going to be creating our home components. So at the very top, we have the import statements. So importing the CSS classes from home.body.css file. Then you're importing React. And then the useState hook from React. And for now, you don't have to understand why, but the target state that we're trying to keep track of is going to be this constant state variable, which is going to be representing the index number of an element in an array. This one, I think I'll come back to it later in the code, and you'll get to see why this is the case. So we have our function home. And within our function, we have three constant declarations. So the first declaration is the const URLs, which gets assigned an array of three URL elements. And we've deliberately put placeholders for the three elements. But actually, for our actual code, for our homepage, it's going to be the URL links to the images of three of us. So Jenna's image, URL link, my image, and Rayhang's. Then we have the second constant declaration, which is the const captions, which gets assigned an array of three caption elements. So we have the descriptions for Jenna, myself, then Rayhang. And do notice here that the elements of the same index number within the captions and URLs array referring to the same class. So for example, the first element or the index 0 elements inside the captions array and the URLs array, they should be referring to Jen. The second set should be referring to myself. The third set referring to Wei. And the reason being is later within our code, we're going to be calling the variable, the state variable, constant state, and we're going to access a certain index element inside the URLs and captions arrays. So you need to make sure that the ordering of the elements within these two arrays are such that the elements of the same index number regards the same class. Now, we have the last constant declaration, which is a const array with the two variables, constant state and set constant state. And then right-hand side, we're calling the useState hook with the initial state value of 0. So what this is doing is it's returning an array of two elements. So the first element is the initial state value, which is 0. And this gets stored in the first variable, which is Parsons state. And then the second element of this newly created array is going to be the state updater function for this specific variable. And this is going to be stored in the second variable, which is set Parsons state. Now, as mentioned before in our pseudocode, the set Parsons state, this updater function can be called later within our code to update the value of this state variable, Parsons state. Now, let's go into the return statements of the function call. And we'll look into the specific div section for the texts. So what this is doing is, it's enclosing the h1 tags over here. And the first h1 tag contains a set of strings. So when this function home gets rendered, it's going to be printing out, hi there, my name is. And then the second h1 tag, what you notice over here, it's actually not a stringlet. It's actually having this strange looking curly braces in between the h1 tags. And this is because we are not trying to access string literal, but we are trying to access a certain index element inside the captions array. So here, the person state variable. Previously in our code, the person state was initialized with the value of 0 with the use of the use state hook. So here, what this is doing is it's accessing the index 0 element inside the captions array, or the first element inside the array, because arrays are 0 here. So collectively, this section is going to be returning, hi there, my name is, and then the following line is going to be the first element inside the captions array, which is Jenna and I have hired DHL Raspberry. So this collection of sets of strings are going to be displayed on the page. But remember that our default page actually has the text as well as the image. And the second div section is doing precisely that. So if you look, there's the img self tag over here. And the source of the image is specified as curly braces, URLs, square bracket, Parsons state. So the use of the curly braces here, it's serving the same purpose as the curly braces over here. So it's accessing or certain indexed elements inside the URLs array. And just as before, the Parsons state variable is holding the initial value of 0. So what this is doing is the source of the image is specified as the index 0 element within the URLs array, which is the first element inside the URLs array. So it's going to be the image link to Jenna. So with the div section for the text and the image rendered, when this function home gets rendered, is we're going to have the default page with the text and image on Jenna. But if you see within the image self tag over here, there's a further specification, which is the on-click special event handler. And what this is it's something that gets triggered when a user clicks on an element. And the on-click special event handler is specified inside the img self tag. So what this means is when the user clicks this image, then whatever is inside this curly braces is going to be executed. So in this case, because we have the nullery function over here, so when the user clicks this image, it's going to execute this nullery function. So it's going to call on set Parsons state with the argument that is the evaluated results of this conditional statement. So Parsons state is still holding the initial value of 0. So the predicate section of the conditional statement, it's going to be evaluated to false. Its Parsons state is not 2, but it's 0 as of now. So it's going to evaluate the alternate section, which is Parsons state plus 1. So it's going to be 0 plus 1 equals 1. So one is going to be the argument to set process state. And what this is going to do is it's going to update the value of the variable process state, because set process state, remember, is the state update function for this specific process state variable. So the state value has changed. So the process state value is now 1 in this case. And when there's the change of the state value, the overall functional component is going to be re-rendered. And what's going to happen is it's going to execute the same set of tasks over here. So it's going to return the captions and the image. But this time around, because the process state variable has changed from 0 to 1, so it's going to access the index 1 element or the second element within the captions array and the URLs array. So ultimately, what we're going to have is a new page with the captions and image for myself, because the captions and the image link for myself or inside the index number of 2. Oh, sorry, index number of 1. Sorry, it's arrays with 0 index. Now, some people may be wondering if the state value has changed and the home function gets re-rendered or re-executed, then wouldn't the state variable process state be reinitialized to 0? Because theoretically, if the function gets executed again, then it's making the same declaration again, right? So you might think process state is going to be reinitialized to 0. Well, that is actually not the case. And what actually happens is React is going to recognize that you previously used state group, and it's going to detach your state from your functional components when the functional component gets rendered again. So the state can be updated and survive the re-rendering of the components without getting reinitialized. So what happens if we click for the second time, third time, fourth time, or even 100 times here? Well, to illustrate this, I'm going to show you a simple diagram on the left-hand side. And we're going to start with the default page. Just assume that we have the captions over here, the image here, we have this default page. And as of the default page, because the process state value was initialized at 0, so we're going to have a current process state value of 0. And as explained before, we're going to access the captions square bracket 0, because process state is 0, and URLs square bracket 0. So our default page is going to be having the captions and image for Jenna. But if you click Jenna's image for the first time, then you get a new set of captions and image, because when you click the image, the on-click special event handler gets triggered, nullary function is executed, and set process state updates a function gets called. And process state is not 2 because it's currently 0. So predicate is false. So process state plus 1 is 0 plus 1. So it's 1 into this set process state, which is going to update the process state value from 0 to 1. This was previously explained before, so I'll try to speed up. So the state has changed, then the functional component home gets re-rendered, and it's going to execute the same task, return the captions and image for myself. Now, if we click my image, then we get a set of captions and image from Ray. And why this is the case is because, well, the same series of events takes place. So the image is clicked, nullary function executed, it's going to call set process state, then it's going to check the predicate section, then the current process state variable is 1 at the moment. It's not 2. So predicate evaluates false. And it's going to evaluate process state plus 1, which is 1 plus 1 equals 2. So 2 is inserted into this set process state. and going to update the process state variable to 2. So this is the reason why we have this current value of 2 for the process state. Then we click for the third time. Then what happens? Then again, the same thing happens. So the onClick special event handler gets triggered, W function executed, set process state pulled. But this time around, constant state is currently at 2. So the predicate actually evaluates to true. And this consequent section of the conditional statements gets evaluated as the arguments to the update function. So what happens is it's going to update the value of constant state to 0. And since the state value has changed, again, the function home gets revalued and we're gonna execute the same thing. It's gonna return the captions and image, but this time the process state value is now currently at 0 because of the state updater function. So what this is essentially doing is it's gonna be returning a page of the captions and image of channel. And remember, that is the actual default page that we had at the start. So after the third click, you're back to the defaults. And this cyclic nature of switching of the pages is going to continue after the 4th click, 5th click, 6th click, and even after 100 times even, it's going to continue to go in a cycle. And this is possible by what is called state and this specific use statement. So yeah, same thing again, the use statement allowing us to switch between the members and have this interactive components. So this is the home.module.css file. So this is the CSS file that was used and imported into our home.js file. And the left screenshot is the home.js file. And if you look specifically into this section for the texts, the class name of this section is specified as classes.intro text. And what this is doing is it's accessing the specific intro text over here, intro text class over here within our CSS file. And these properties and these features are going to be used to style our page 1 tags, which are the children elements enclosed by the overall div tag over here. And I wouldn't go into like nitty-gritty details of how these features are implemented, because this workshop is primarily focusing on React and JavaScript. So if you do have some intention of looking into the CSS code in specific, please access our GitHub page, the GitHub code. If you have any questions, you guys can ask later on. So feel free to ask. Now, just because we have the home.js and CSS file in place, we don't actually have our home page rendered automatically. We need to set up some fundamental foundational files. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to create another file called app.js. And we need to export a home.js file and import it into this new file. And so within our app.js, we're going to be importing this home.js. And inside our function app, it's going to be returning the self home components tag. And the reason being is app.js serves as kind of like a folder for your components. So let's say you have your home component built as of now. So app is going to be having this set of, I guess, this ordering of your components. So because we have only one component within our parentheses, we only have the self components tag for our home components. So app.js serves as a folder for you. But we also need to export this app.js file. Hence the reason why we have this export default in front of our function over here. And we need to export it to another file called index.js. And what this file is it contains the logic and the instructions for rendering the components. Yeah, I'm trying to like explain in very simple terms. So you don't need to understand the details or how the code is formatted. Just know the functionality of the foundational files, which are the index.js and the end.js. So now that we have some fundamental files in place, as well as the home.js and module.css file in place, we're going to render the functions, render the components. And this is the default page that we will get. So we have this default page with the captions and image of the channel. So that was the end of the second one. So that was a brief intro to how functional component is structured and how we can make use of the hook use states and have this interactive feature, switching of captions and images. So we're gonna give you guys like a 5 minutes break. Quick 3 minutes, okay. 3 minutes break. So you guys want to go to the toilets or have any questions to ask, feel free to.
Open the news now. I just don't know open it will bug out. I don't know, that's why I cannot install the dependency. Should we close out? Then reopen. But at least if I want to run one of these, oh, it will automatically.
Okay, that's not so if you close right, you close the server.
But then when you want to, I know you want to queue, then when you queue the terminal.
Wait, how to queue?
Queue is you can just queue from there.
Control C.
Control C, right? So I queue, I npm install, npm install.
Terminal is a pain.
Actually hate terminal terminal is start.
Oh my god.
Okay, downloading. The rest I think is you understand what. But you know it's alright. It's like you something but I can't really. Because if I want to edit it to start like the web page right, if I want to continue like whenever I see then you upload the website.
So it's like change the website itself.
Or then you start with npm start.
Yeah, just start with npm start.
Import the original files are whole benefits.
Oh, you should get your Oh, you go to it, they just let it jump.
Oh, I did. So you just include you put in a new file on the side.
No, it's not you the home then you change the home you create another file with pages.
You create another file with pages.
Yeah.
So like you create you want here, there's
Also like they call it pages. So it's like pages.
oh there's like pages of
Yeah. So it's about folder.
oh create a new folder. Okay, so okay, then you call it pages.
Yeah. It'll be in the pages you can put all all your different pages inside.
Okay. Then there's when you download all the files from
Yeah, kind of.
Then the input strategy has to be provided. This strategy has to be provided.
Do you have the file? You just show the app. It's just to render the.
But it's not so we need to include in our.
Yes,
So it's just this part, right?
it's already there for you already. So like next year, I mean, I'm quite clear, right? It's actually right. Component or display the below component. So what the below component is app, right?
Yeah.
So the app, right? They change it to home.js, right? It's showing app, which is showing.
Okay.
Okay, break time ending in 5 seconds.
I know this is CSS, I know this is errors, but
Okay, so from judging, from going around just now, I think not everyone, but some of us are a bit confused. Okay, so I just want to reassure you guys, if you're kind of confused, you don't know what is going on, it's okay. Yeah, even though what I'm going to cover next is related, there's plenty of new things that even if you didn't get what was going on just now, doesn't mean you're not going to get it this time. Yeah, so just to reiterate, right, remember that there's this GitHub link. So please do not type everything on your own. Just copy paste the whole section and then just put it into your own local device. Okay. Okay, so the next segment that we're going to be doing is it's for your project page. Okay, I'm sure everyone here is aware of how crucial any project page is for a portfolio website, right? It's where the employer see, oh, wow, she's so experienced, she has so many projects, she's the perfect candidate for the job, right? Okay, so for this segment, we're going to be using the concept of reusable components. All right, so there's actually two reusable components that we're going to be building today. So the first one is a cart component. So a cart component, we are creating the cart component. So in this case, the cart component is just the box surrounding all the content. So the box in this case, if you can see, there's rounded edges, there's a shadow, and there's a white background. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be building is called project item component. So the project item component consists of the border, the box, plus all the content inside. Yeah. So after we build that project item component, we're just going to keep repeating it throughout the page or throughout our file to create as many projects as we want. And so that repetition is the reusable component concept. Okay, perfect. So just to re-emphasize, in case anyone's confused, the first thing that we're going to be building is the cart component. Then we are going to nest it within the project item component. And then after that, we're just going to repeat it as many times as we want to display as many projects as we want. Okay, so let's build a cart component. Okay, so this is the first file we see. Okay, everyone can go to your GitHub, just copy this over as I'm speaking. So, okay, if you don't want to copy it over and just listen, that's totally fine as well. So the cart.module.css, this is our style sheet. So Jae-ho went over some style sheets in CSS just now. And I know some of you are more familiar with this. So yes, a friendly slide for you. Okay, so here we see the background color, white. Border radius is for the rounded edges, and then box shadow is, of course, there's some shadow for your box. Okay. So once you've coded out this CSS page, we want to apply the styles to whatever is on our page, right? So in order to apply the styles, it's very important you must import your classes from whatever style sheet you have. If you don't import this, nothing's going to happen, okay? So the next thing that we're going to look at is something called props, okay? Props is something unique to React, and this is the most complex concept that I'm going to be sharing with y'all. So yeah, just pay closer attention to this. Okay, so how I would explain it is, okay, just now I was talking about reusable components, right? So reusable components, in simple terms, you can think of it as a template, all right? So with this template, you can put any data set, all different data inside this template, and it'll be structured in the exact same way, or it will perform the exact same function, just with different data. Okay. In the context of React, this template is your reusable component. Okay, and this data that you are passing into the component, it is passed in through this props thing over here. Okay, this props, it also stands for properties. It's an object that contains JSX attributes and children. Okay, so for those who are newer to React, this sounds really confusing. You can just think of props as an object containing all the data that you want to pass into the component. Okay, everyone good? Everyone understand? Okay, nice. Okay, so now that we have this props thing, right? We look at the next slide. It is passed in as props.children over there. So in our case, right, in this card component, the props that are being passed into the card component is all the content that I showed you just now, the image, the description, all the text. That is our props. Okay, so we are passing in all this content as props.children, and we see that it's wrapped in div tags. Okay, div tags with the attribute of class name equals classes.card. Okay, so what's going on here, right? Okay, so what's happening is whatever is wrapped in this div tag with this attribute, the styles that we mentioned just now will be applied to whatever is wrapped in this div tags. Okay, so what that translates to and what we see, right, is our card component, if you realize. Because all our styles, remember, it was like a white background, rounded edges, box shadow, right? So now we created this box, and then our props, or like the content we have inside, are just inside this box. So yeah, simply like that, we created our card component in 2 lines. Yes. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our project item component. So how we're going to structure all the content inside, because we already made the box outside, right? Okay, so for this project item component, it's good because I'll be explaining props again. For those of you who are still a bit confused, that's fine. Yeah, but this project items component is a bit more, it's a lot more difficult than our card component, which is 2 lines. So how I'm going to explain it is I'm going to start from the raw data and show you how it is passed from one component to another through props. Okay, but in order to do this, I'm going to show you 4 files. So if you're following on your computer, just copy paste those files into your own local device. So the first file is this project item.module.css. Okay, every start I'll give you around 10 seconds. Okay. Okay, remember, if you have any questions, we have a lot of help around, so you can just ask me them. Okay, so now with this CSS sheet, the next one is this project item.js. Okay, and also remember to follow the folder structure. If not, some of the import statements won't work. Okay, next one is this project.js. Okay, and if I'm going too fast, I think the slides just sent to you, right? So you can also refer to that. Okay, last one is project.module.css. Okay. So now let's start with the project.js. Okay, the project.js, okay, we see some friendly HTML, some simple H1 tags, we love them. So this just simply creates my projects with H1 tags on the page. Okay, now we approach this monstrous bit. Yeah, so it's a bunch of purple and blue text within this project item self-posting tag. Okay, what's going on? Okay, so this purple text, right, it's actually all the raw data, guys. That's what the purple text is. And the blue and purple text together, that's just a bunch of key value pairs. Okay. And okay, if you Okay, I'll just read it because I don't think y'all can see it. Okay, so there's key equals M1, ID equals M1. These are just unique identifiers. Then we see an image equals the image URL. Title is a string of title and description is a string of description. Okay, everything, all the blue and purple things that you see, these are props, right? Keyword of the day, props. Okay, these are props. And they're going to be passed in, and they are passed in into project items as props. Okay, so let's see what project items does. Okay, surprise, surprise, here's props again. Okay. So props is over there. And remember, that is all our blue and purple text just now, all the raw data. Okay, so before props was passed in as props.children, right? But here, it's something different. Okay, coding is very tough, right? Everything keeps changing. Okay, so here we see there's this like image tag, and then the first instance we see props again is props.image. And we also see a props.title. Okay, so what props.image is? Props.image is the value corresponding to the key of image in the raw data. Okay, that's a really long sentence. Okay, so if I were to break it down, what's happening here is, do you remember all like the raw data, the blue and purple hex stuff? Okay, so what's happening here is you are going to look in your raw data. You're going to find the key of image, and then you're going to take the value, which in this case is the image URL. So what happens in the end once this whole process is done, right? It's going to generate an image for that particular image URL. All right. So I have another example here. Okay, so props.title. Okay, what is this going to do? It's going to look in your raw data, find the key of title, pull out that value, and then plot it over there. Okay, so what happens in the end? It's going to generate a title in H3 text. Okay, and then props description is exactly the same. Okay. So now, everything that we've done so far, actually, we've structured the content entirely. We've structured the title, description, the image. Okay, and the next thing that we see is this whole thing is wrapped in card tags. Okay, and if you remember, we are the ones who created a card tag. Okay, and does anyone know what? Can anyone guess what this whole chunk is in the middle between the card tags? Something about the keyword of the day. Props, exactly. Okay, so everything between the card tags are props. And it makes sense because remember when I was looking at this slide, I said props is actually all the content that is inside the box, which is exactly what we've created. Okay, so congratulations everyone. You've hit the toughest part of my section. Okay, gotta wait until recurring section, then your mind will be blown again. Okay. So now that we've created our reusable component, we can just repeat it as many times as we want. So here I only repeated it twice. So all I did was project in and just change the purple text. Okay. Okay. So now we've created a project part, right? But we've hit another problem. Actually, if you're following the slides, right? If you go to your code sandbox, this is what you'll see. You won't see any of like the project stuff that we did just now. All our hard work, you won't see any of it. Yeah. And that is because we did not change our app.js. Okay, our app.js is crucial because whatever is in our app.js, it will, whatever is displayed on our browser depends on what is in your app.js. And if you look in your app.js, you should only see this because this is what J. Cole had in his section. So you can only see it returns the home component. So that makes sense, right? Why we can't see our project component, and you can only see like my high DHL cholesterol. Okay, so we need to do something to change it. Okay, we need to find a way to display not only our home page, but also display our project page as well, what we want to. Okay, so how we're going to do that is through routes. Okay, next segment. It's how we get from page to page. Okay, and this is why we needed everyone to download that package. Okay, if you still have trouble to download, you can just ask anyone at the back. They can easily help you in like 5 seconds. Okay, so why we need that dependency is because we have to import this component called browser router. Okay, browser router. So what browser router does, right? It's actually just a component. So what browser router does is that it makes the app, you can think of it as making the app aware that routing is going to be done. So it keeps an eye out for those routes that you're going to be creating. Okay. So because it's a component, we can treat it as an HTML element, meaning that we can just wrap our app in these browser router tags. Yeah, so that's the only adjustment we need to make in our index.js file. Okay. So now we go to our app.js, right? Like I mentioned, very crucial. Okay, and this is where we're going to make our individual routes. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is import route and routes, similar like how we imported browser router. Okay, these are components that I'll explain further later in the example. Okay, then we need to import the home and project component. Okay, so now let me explain the routes individually. Okay, the easier one to understand is the second one. So we're going to focus on that one. So the second one, okay, I'm just going to explain what this entire line means, the projects one. So you see path equals / projects, right? And then you see an element equals this projects component. So what this means, right, is, okay, on your code sandbox or those of you on localhost, what it means is if you add the word projects to the back of your URL, it will bring you to the projects component. Okay, everyone understand? Everyone good? Okay. So explaining it with another example, the home page, it's this path equals /. Okay, what does path equals / even mean? This means that if I add nothing to the back of my URL, I will be brought to my home page, which is what we want, because home pages are generally the default page. Yeah. So once we've created our routes, right, we need to give them a little home. So we're going to wrap the whole thing in routes tags. So with that, you've created routes, and you can try it on your own devices. Actually, when you add the words in the back, it will bring you to the page. Okay. But that's really inconvenient, yeah, because on portfolio websites, you can't really expect the employer to know that there's this secret URL. If I add project to the back, it'll bring me to the project page. Yeah, that's a really bad way to go about things. So that's why we need a navigation bar. So we can just simply click and be brought to another page. Okay, so this is a lot of CSS. Okay, if you have questions on CSS, you can ask us after the whole workshop. Yeah, because it's not the focus of today, but okay, we need this to make things pretty. Okay, now we have navigation.js. Okay, this is our main focus. Okay, on the top, you see that we're importing the classes because we need the styles, right? And then we are also importing link from React Router DOM. Okay, so what link does, I'll explain it with an example at the bottom. Okay, I'll explain it here. Okay, so what link does is, it's pretty intuitive. So you see link 2 equals /. So what this is saying is if I click home, which is wrapped in the link tags, right? If I click home, it will link me to the URL of /. So remember, the URL with the / means add nothing behind it. Okay, so what happens here is if I click home, it will link me to the home page, right? Okay, another example. With the next link. Okay, so the second example, if I click projects, it will link me to the URL with the projects behind it. Okay, so this will display our project page because we've already created the routes. Okay, okay, the whole thing is wrapped in header text because we want it to be at the top. Okay, and then this is the last slide. Okay. Okay, from my part, the celebration part. Okay, so remember I said app.js is really, really important, right? It's where what is displayed on your screen is dependent on. So your app.js, you want your nav bar to be displayed on every single page that you see. Okay, so that's why we're gonna add import navigation, and then we're going to add navigation there. Yeah. So so after that you have your nav bar, and so in this segment you've learned routing, nav bar. You created a project page. Should feel pretty accomplished. Rekong, do you want a break or do you just want to continue?
I want to see the speed for 1 minute.
Okay, y'all can have a 1 minute break. If you have any questions, just ask us. And people on Zoom, you can ask us too, okay? Yeah, you can ask us on the digital. I think it's
It's only form. Okay, go back to your terminal. You shut it down, Control C.
Right.
Then you MPM this. I think MPM this.
Okay, Nigel, do something. I have some issue in
So
project.
it doesn't have that, that means you must install it.
I was installing it.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, I installed already, but since it is an issue with him, when you cycle, so this is because it's a, or it might not be considered as an app or as a watch. I have no idea what they are.
Have you tried whether you install
So I just installed them now.
NPM?
Yeah,
Let me take a look.
yeah, sure. This is all related.
Wait, can you run it?
I don't think it's funny. Went down to index to run.
Yeah, let me take a
We also have vulnerability when you try to install it. Where's your unseen? I saw and so.
Okay, yeah. We do have the website. Will it show up as a website like this? Like a local host? No. Okay. Game start. Oh. Because using what TypeScript?
Why is it relying on TypeScript?
How do you clone the thing?
I just downloaded a file as a zip. Yeah.
Download the file, is it?
Yeah. Eh? Because it's on like TypeScript. Is that what's the issue, or I have no idea.
Sure, that's no idea.
Wait, this. NPM.
Not recognized as it. I'm not too sure.
Hey.
Yeah, I very used to be for
There's a lot of things missing.
Wait, the thing. But then you try installing it, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an error.
What's the error there?
Yeah, that's right.
Not too sure.
How about my score rate? So 100%. 100% improvement.
Oh, that's probably a dependency mix-up here. Probably there's TypeScript on my laptop, and then there's some compatibility issue.
In a new, as a new, in a new folder, right?
Yeah.
Unpack it into a new folder, or do you unpack it into existing one?
It's a new folder.
Sorry, thank you.
That's good. Yeah.
Vulnerability. Cannot install vulnerability. Then
Oh, my fault.
try forcing, but forcing nothing happened.
Yeah, okay. So that's what about that.
I can go back the upper.
Is it like that? You try.
What's that? What is it? Yeah.
Okay, hey guys, let's carry on. You like that? Okay, that was my one contribution. This entire slide. Yes, that's it. Okay, I think Jeho and Jenna did a splendid job. We've been through a lot of things. We've gone through the fundamentals of React. We have gone through how to build a stateful component, a component that uses state, and how to handle that state. We've also passed the state around. We've passed the state to a child. And as part of props, right? All the stuff about props, and the child, you receive props from the parent, and you can do something with it. We've done that. We have also routed things together very nicely and very efficiently using Alpha tool called React Router DOM. Right. So I think Jeho and Jenna did a very nice job. But unfortunately, I'm back. So you start with me now. Are we talking about it should be quite a short segment, right? But we've built all that. We have a nice page. We have different pages that are routed together nicely, but I think we can do a little bit better, right? So I think we can introduce a little more interactivity in between components. I think that would, I don't know, that might give us more ability, more potential to do more things with our website. So to illustrate what I mean, I will build a new page. This page will be called contact.js. This is the contact info page. This is the last page of the entire website. So we'll be having two new components, contact and contacts. Contact, the singular contact is the child, and contacts, it's the parent. Right? And then contact also has contact modular CSS just to make it look nice. So we'll be, this is kind of how the layout will look like. You can refer to the GitHub if you know where to put stuff. Okay, so this is what we should see. I mean, it's very plain, but it's to illustrate the concept. This is what you'll see on the contacts page. So we have a giant image of a LinkedIn logo, and then this image is attached. I mean, this image has a source tag or reference, whatever, to a link. That link is my GitHub profile, my LinkedIn profile, right? So this giant logo, it says LinkedIn, and if you click on it, it should bring the user to my LinkedIn profile, and then they will have me as a friend, right? And then below that, it says, want to see my GitHub, and they'll think, I do want to see your GitHub, so they'll click on it, and then when they click on it, the LinkedIn logo becomes a GitHub logo, and at the same time, the link behind the GitHub logo will also change to my GitHub profile, and then they click on it, and it brings them to my GitHub profile, and then the button also changes to once I LinkedIn. So this mouse doesn't go backwards, so I need to. Okay. So if I click on it again, it'll go back, and click on it again, it'll just keep going back. Right? So clearly, there's something about state going on. So clearly, if you click on it, the state changes to the other thing, and then what is on the screen also changes to the other thing based on the state. And some of you might be wondering, this is kind of dumb. I mean, it's one thing on the entire website. Why don't you just put them side by side? The answer is that would not be very fun. Okay, so that would not be very interesting. It wouldn't illustrate my point. So I don't have a good answer for that. Anyway, let's carry on. So to illustrate this concept, let's look at this diagram. This is kind of like a flow chart. Right? Okay, let's say we have a parent. We have a parent component, and this parent component has a state called state A. then this parent has a child and it wants to pass the state A to the child. It wants the child to have access to state A. So just like Jenna spent a lot of time talking about this, we can pass state A as part of the props to the child, right? And now the child can access state A using props. You can say props dot something. In this case, there's only one state, props dot that state, for example. And then you can use it, right? You can use it to render different things based on the state of the parent. And in the case where the state changes instead of parent, then automatically, by default at least, the child will be updated accordingly based on the state, based on the props that is receiving. The props change, everything inside that's dependent on the props will also change. So that's interesting, but this state exists only inside the parent, right? There's no way for the child to do anything about the state, right? So what if you want to do something to the child, or allow the user to do something to the child, or maybe not even the child, maybe do something to some other component that doesn't have the state, and you want to affect that state? Well, there are many ways to do this, right? But this is the way that we'll be kind of exploring. Remember how we can update the state inside of a component, right? Remember that there's a state and then the updated function when we call useState. Right? That updated function is just another function. We can pass that as part of the process as well to the child. And then the child can just access it when it wants. And that would in fact trigger a call to the handler or the updater, whatever it is. And that will update the state inside the parent and accordingly also affect itself. So that kind of closes the loop. So this is just one additional step in the kind of the interaction between the parent and child component. And this is quite basic, I guess. It's just passing one more thing as a part of the props. But it allows us a lot more flexibility in interaction between components. And this is kind of a very basic way of doing it. I'm sure there are more ways. There are more hooks available. There are more APIs and whatever thing you want to use. But this is just one of many ways to do this thing I want to achieve. Just like with I believe there were some questions about the routing. Like you can why not just have a HTML and have a link and that clicks to the other component? You can do that, but it's always about trade-offs. There are benefits of doing that, and there are benefits of using it this way. So this is one way that we'll be exploring today. Okay, let's look at a pseudocode in this contact and context kind of relationship. So context.js on the left, this is the parent component, right? The parent component, it has, well, of course, it has a use state to create a state. And it also has the updater. So we've been through all that, right? But more interesting, right below this, we have a handler function. This green handler function is basically just, it's the same as the updater function, but it exists so that you can have all of the logic inside the parent. So you can simply pass the handler to the child. But effectively, it works as updated function. When you call the handler function, it updates the state. Okay. And it returns contact, and contact, and the yellow stuff inside is the props that is passing the context, or rather the props that the contact will receive. So the contact is the child. And you see that the props are dependent on the state, and also handler is part of the props. Okay, so this is kind of key. We have handler and the props. And then contact on the right, that is child component. And you see all of those yellow dynamic things. It just means it's dependent on props, right? It's dependent on props, which in turn are dependent on the state of the parent. And of course, on click, the button will call handler, which the loop thing, right? Yeah. Okay, that closes the loop. Okay, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but okay, well, it's all on GitHub, so please copy and paste. Don't write out everything, that's crazy. Okay, let's look at the actual code now. Inside context.js, if we zoom in on this part, first we define the click state and set click state as usual, right? Using useState. And then right below that, we have click state handler, and there's the handler. The handler is another function that just calls the same updater function that we previously just defined. And then it goes through this ternary operator thing again, like Jeho said. So it first checks if click state is currently the string LinkedIn, right? The default state was LinkedIn, right? When I first opened the state, when I first opened the page, it was a giant LinkedIn logo, and that's because the default state is LinkedIn. It will check whether click state is LinkedIn. If it is, then it will change to GitHub. If it's not, then it will change to LinkedIn. So it's really just these two states bouncing back and forth. And then below that, we have the return statement. It returns a child component. The child component is the contact, right? But what exactly is passed in as the props is again dependent on the state, right? So this is how we decided to do it. I'm sure there are other ways to use the fact that state changes to pass different props. So click state, if it's LinkedIn, then this child is returned. If it's not, then the other child is returned. And the props are accordingly different. Right? The LinkedIn one is, well, it has all the LinkedIn URLs and stuff, the GitHub, vice versa. Okay, so that is returned. And then if you look at the child component, this is a little easier. Let's zoom in on ahref, right? This is an anchor tag, and that brings us to the link that is specified inside of href. And the link that is specified inside of href is props.url. So again, this is dependent on props, on what was passed in from the parent. And what was passed in from the parent is dependent on the parent's state, right? So if it's LinkedIn, then what is passed in as URL is my LinkedIn profile. So just like this href, just like this anchor tag, a lot of everything else is actually also dependent on props. So everything is quite dynamic in that sense. Most interestingly, on click, the button will also access props, but the prop that it accesses is the handler. And if you click on the button, it will return another call to the parent to update the state in the parent. And then that changes its own props. And when its own props changes, it changes to GitHub or LinkedIn, right? It flips between the two states. So that's kind of how it works behind the scenes. That's how you flip between these two. It's a little long-winded for a very simple kind of binary flip, but it's kind of to illustrate this concept. Okay, now we're done with the page, but we need to include that inside of our main app, inside of the accessible part of our app. So we need to again update app.js. We need to import contacts from the context.js. We also need to add a new route to route it to context. So this is nothing new. It's just adding it to the right. These two, I can't get them to be read together, but yeah, those two. So add those, and then also in navigation.js, you need a new list item so that you can see the context on the navigation bar. And when you click on it, it goes to our third page, right? So those two are it's nothing new. Just add those. Okay. All right, let's carry on. We're done. Good job, everybody. All right. Now we have a little quiz segment. I hope that everyone brought pen and paper because it will be graded. And then okay. Is that very funny? Okay, no, it's not. It won't be graded. That's insane. It will be a very short MCQ kind of thing. There'll be 6 questions, and we will. How should we do it? Okay, we'll press the button, and if whoever raises their hand first, I guess, will win. We'll win the chance to answer the question, and then if you get it right, you will win a prize. The prize is a $5 voucher. I don't know. Is that exciting? Okay. And if you get it wrong, you will be immediately escorted out of the room. Okay, so don't get it wrong.
Okay, so we're gonna start with the first question. What is React? We're given 3 options. So, option B. Oh yeah, that is correct. React is a JavaScript library. So are we gonna play different?
Okay, if you get a question right, just come to the front after the workshop.
Yeah.
I know there's some form to make sure that we're not embezzling the club funds. That's for any purposes. So you'll get it soon enough.
Okay, so the second question. Which symbol encloses JavaScript values inside of CSS code?
Okay,
Same
no.
possible again. Wait,
We don't
should
play
we-
the
should we
same.
give
No, we get
someone
hands,
else?
we get hands.
Okay, yeah. B. Option B is correct. Yeah, parentheses. You have the parentheses, and inside it, you're supposed to have JSX elements.
Is it?
Yeah, JSX. You within the within statements, you have
I know, right now.
parentheses, and then you have JSX.
CSS code itself is
JSX.
it's just like everything.
What you
I
thought?
think the angle C is the direction. Everything wrong.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
You didn't listen.
Okay, so the question is.
Okay, next question. What exactly does use state return when called with an argument? Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
B.
yeah, correct. Okay, it's an array, guys. Just saying it's an array. Okay, next one. That's one.
Wait, everyone comes in.
No, I remember. Okay, next one. Which import statement to enable routing is correct? Okay, I can't see. Okay, hands down, hands down. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Import to yeah, correct. Wow, everyone's so confused. Really?
What is JS major?
Oh,
it was
Yeah, it's my major.
It was fast.
Oh, okay, what's the major?
You can't answer before. No, right? No, okay.
You remember the pieces?
I can't.
Like, let it proceed.
See?
Are you sure?
Oh man, I was gonna ask him his favorite animal.
Oh,
You just answered it. Okay.
okay.
Yeah, correct. Good job. Okay, that's one.
Ooh, hard question.
Someone. Oh, sorry. Can't answer anyway.
That's it.
Yes.
I think B.
I think if anyone else wants to,
I think B.
D.
Yeah, okay, here's the-
Yes,
C.
it is C.
Oh,
It is C.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if the parent component does not pass a handler function, it can still pass a state,
Yeah.
right? So the child can follow the state of the parent as part of the props. It just cannot do anything to the state. Right? So answer is C. Good job, everybody. I'll come on to claim your prizes soon. First, I need to plug for the backend workshop. So we've done a nice front end, and if you're wondering how to complete your experience as a developer, and you want to learn about backend, whatever services, I guess. I don't know about it. I'm attending it too. Please scan this QR code and attend this workshop. It'll be very fun. It'll be very interesting. We'll be building backend using Firebase, whatever that means, right? So please join us. It'll be 16 Jan, 8 to 10 p.m. It will be online. It'll be fully online, so you don't have to come down here. Please do that. Also, Hack for Good, our hackathon is happening sometime in February. And the signups will be opening sometime in late Jan. So please look out for that as well.
Can't even
In
know.
fact,
It's not even right now. This one's also after still dying. Is it still? Yeah, I'm still dying. My homepage cannot log.
You know why? Actually,
we're gonna
Oh,
answer.
if I still die,
can you save?
That's gonna be the number.
it's still defined whenever you
I will go back to
That means it's okay. Then you go back to the website.
Go back to the
so go to the website.
Okay.
It works now
But there's nothing coming out. Is it because I still don't have my other?
because you never use it anywhere.
Okay,
Like this one you change, right?
Yeah.
Definitely this one you change.
You didn't use. You see why it's grayed out, right? Why it's grayed out because you haven't used it yet. That's why it doesn't show up anything.
Okay.
There's an error message because we never.
Okay, the question.
I need to slowly figure out. I need to slowly figure out. I know what's happening.
Holy shit!
Yeah. It's still happening.
Right? It looks great as a refresher. I did it all before.
You follow along?
Yes, yes.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay, now
because
the
the info
coding is done. How do I
for this guy.
change
What
the
was I saying?
website?
Like
The
don't
live
touch it,
server on
follow,
my web
and
browser.
show for you.
I don't really understand the question.
Or maybe it's a like
My games that were
How to post the website. Oh yeah. right,
we
right.
have like some
Okay, so this is really covered today, which I mean explains like why you're confused. Okay, but good news is the back end workshop is gonna cover all about this. So I'll just go sign up for the workshop thing or not. Thanks, man.
We'll go back.
Okay, after copying, I did npm start, but I get a blank screen on localhost 3000. Okay, for this question, okay, I started this now, I was a bit confused also. I think you probably have to check whether it's probably to do something with like returning or like whether you did export the component. So I guess check that. Other than that, yeah, I mean I don't have the code, so I'm not very sure, but that would be my first guess. Do you have any other guesses? If whoever asks this question, you can just like send your code into the pigeonhole thing, then we'll try to help you later. Okay, next question. Okay, don't worry guys, only a few questions. Okay, regarding GitHub files equals, do we copy public and source folder and replace the new ones? Yes. Okay, so the GitHub file, you can just replace the whole thing. Just copy the whole thing and just copy it to your own file. Okay, next question. Is it advisable to draw out the layout in terms of components on paper or something before we start making these React components? Yeah. And especially if you're new, it's really good to draw out your layout first, like the ones that we had in the slide, in like the first few slides. Just so you're not confused with all like the props and passing and everything. Okay, so that's actually just a variable. Like we can use other names if it's
yeah. I how it looks, right? Just use a what's the point? It's a statement. Like what the
Very
fuck is a
confused
statement?
about this. Okay, personally, I'm always
What's
just
going on?
wait. Can you just replace props in
I'm pretty sure you can, yeah.
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 I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, I haven't tried,
No,
but
we do see why not, we shouldn't, but you can.
yeah, you can, I guess. Okay, next one. Are we supposed to make these files? Where do we make them in? Okay, so general rule of thumb. Okay, your code sandbox, it should look exactly the same as my GitHub. Yeah, so if you see a source folder, there should be a source folder. Yeah, it should just be exactly the same. And so when do we use curly brackets when we do import? Okay, sometimes, right, we just import the entire package without the curly braces, right? That's kind of you're generally importing the package. Okay, but if you want to import like specific components, it's a better practice to use these curly brackets just to import these special things. Okay. Okay. So, okay, I think that's all the questions.
I don't have
Okay, if any of you guys have questions, you can ask
Sorry,
us.
down the
But,
image, right?
yeah,
I don't have,
file.
I don't have the image.
it's gonna be super useful. Okay, I think I mean I probably will.
I don't
I don't know private.
We're gonna use React, I think.
We're doing it 15 minutes.
Yeah, doing your team.
Okay, we're done. Thank you. If any questions, can just ask us.
14 and 15. Yeah.
The what?
Overnight. Wait, what? Holy shit, I'm in shit.
Okay, but yeah, those pending on Zoom, like thank you
What do
so
you
much for
overbook yourself
attending.
with?
If you still have any
What do you
questions,
double book?
Oh my god.
and
Okay,
you have
I have
start
followed
one, I'm
now.
not sure why that's not working. You can just put it in the pigeonhole or try to answer it. Okay, thank you everyone.
Don't start speaking already.